Hey everyone, and welcome back to Truth Serum. You know we like to dive deep into the strange and mysterious and, well, we've got a real head scratcher for you today. This fog. It's been blanketing communities and it seems like it's everywhere.
It is pretty widespread, right? We're talking multiple states in the US,
Yeah.
Canada, the UK, even some reports popping up from Poland.
Yeah, and the internet's really having a field day with this one. FogVid24, Silent Hill come to life.
I've seen those.
I get it. Some of the descriptions are
Yeah.
pretty eerie.
Yeah, they are. But I think what we need to do is try to cut through some of that noise
Yeah.
and really
Yeah.
understand what's
Yeah.
actually going on here.
Yeah.
Beyond just where is this fog, what really stands out to me is how people are describing this fog.
Yeah.
This isn't just, oh, it's kind of hazy this morning. There are a lot of reports of this really potent chemical smell and even some pretty concerning health effects.
Definitely adds another layer to this whole thing. We've seen accounts of people experiencing sneezing, eye irritation, even some folks reporting respiratory issues after being in this fog.
Yeah, and there are some accounts that are very specific too,
Oh, yeah.
which makes them all the more unsettling. I was reading about this one Florida resident who is saying that they got intensely ill after just 10 minutes at a gas station.
Wow.
They were describing like sneezing, puffy eyes, even fever and stomach cramps.
Oh, then.
So you can see why people start drawing comparisons to things like, chemical spills, government experiments.
I mean, anytime something unusual happens, people love to connect it back to history.
Wow.
I know I've seen a lot of chatter online about Operation Sea Spray, that 1950s experiment where the U.S. Navy released bacteria over San Francisco.
Right.
Makes you wonder if something similar could be happening now, even if it seems pretty far-fetched.
Understandable, that line of thinking. But before we get too far down the rabbit hole of, conspiracy theories, let's take a step back for a second. Let's remember that fog itself is a perfectly natural meteorological event.
Right.
It forms when warm, moist air comes into contact with cooler air or surfaces, causes the water vapor to condense.
So essentially, fog is just tiny water droplets suspended in the air.
Exactly.
But then how do we explain that distinct chemical odor so many people are describing?
Right, because that's not
Something you usually get with regular fog.
No, that's not your typical morning fog smell. And that's really what pushes the situation from ordinary to unsettling, I think.
Right.
And it's the million-dollar question. One possibility, and this is something that scientists are looking into, is that the fog is interacting with existing air pollutants.
Okay.
So it's essentially concentrating them.
Interesting.
And we know that a lot of urban areas already struggle with poor air quality.
Right.
So you can imagine this fog acting like this giant sponge,
Wow.
absorbing those pollutants and making that smell much more intense.
So instead of introducing something new, it's just amplifying what's already there.
Precisely.
Okay.
And if that's the case, that could also help explain why some people are experiencing those health problems.
Yeah.
If you have existing pollutants and the fog is concentrating them, it could trigger or worsen respiratory issues.
Makes sense, especially for people who are already sensitive to poor air quality.
Exactly.
So while we can't rule out some of those more outlandish theories, it's possible there's a more straightforward scientific explanation for this fog.
And its effects. Yeah, I think that's a very reasonable assumption at this point.
But I think even if that is the case, there's still this question of why we're not seeing more official information or media coverage
Yeah.
about this whole situation. It's strange.
It is, and
The lack of transparency definitely fuels a lot of the distrust and speculation.
absolutely. And that's something that I think we need to talk about because that silence can be just as unsettling as the fog itself.
Hmm.
When people feel like they're not getting the full story, they tend to fill in the blanks themselves, sometimes with explanations that are way more dramatic than what's realistic.
Yeah.
It creates this vicious cycle where the lack of information breeds these conspiracy theories, which further erodes trust in official sources.
Yeah, it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. And it does make you wonder if there's something more to this story, even if it's not as
Right.
dramatic as some of the theories out there.
Right, and that brings us to, I think, the bigger picture here.
Okay.
Is this fog and the fear surrounding it a symptom of something larger, something we haven't fully grasped yet,
Like, what are we talking, climate change here?
potentially? Or it could be something else entirely.
Okay.
But the point is, we're living in a time of unprecedented environmental change.
Yeah.
We are seeing unusual weather events happening more and more frequently all over the world. Extreme temperatures, intense storms, strange snowfall patterns.
Right.
And now this fog,
With its
with its unique characteristics and potential health risks.
It's a lot to process.
It really
It
is.
really is. And it's hard to know where to even begin making sense of it all.
I think that's where a lot of the anxiety comes from, right?
Yeah.
We as humans, we crave explanations, we seek patterns, and when something like this fog appears, something we can't immediately understand, triggers that unease.
So how do we balance that desire for understanding with the fact that there are some things we just may never fully comprehend? I mean, should we just resign ourselves to living in a world where these strange events become the new normal?
I don't think resignation is the answer.
Right.
I think a healthier approach is to shift our focus from fear to curiosity.
No.
Instead of letting the unknown paralyze us, we can choose to embrace it.
I like that.
We can ask questions, explore different perspectives,
Hmm.
and be open to the possibility that there are forces at play that we may never fully grasp.
So it's about finding that balance between acknowledging the mystery, the unknown, and still striving to learn and expand our understanding. But how do we do that when it seems like there's just so much misinformation out there? I mean, everyone has a theory. It's hard to know what to believe.
It's definitely a challenge,
Yeah.
but I think it starts with being discerning consumers of information.
Okay.
We need to seek out reliable sources, whether that's scientific journals, reputable news outlets, or government agencies that have a track record of accuracy.
Right.
And equally important, we need to be wary of information that seems too sensational or relies heavily on emotional appeals.
Oh.
Those are often red flags that something isn't quite right.
Makes sense. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence.
Exactly.
But even when we find that credible information, this whole situation with the fog brings up some pretty big questions.
Sure.
Like, what does this mean for our health in the long run? What steps can we take to protect ourselves if this becomes a recurring phenomenon?
These are valid concerns, and honestly, we don't have all the answers yet.
Yeah.
But I think one thing we can do is take practical precautions. If you're in an area affected by this fog, minimizing your exposure is key.
Right.
Using air purifiers indoors, considering a mask if you have to be outside for extended periods, and just paying close attention to any symptoms you might be experiencing
Sure.
are all good steps to take.
And I imagine staying informed about air quality reports in your area would be helpful too.
Absolutely. Knowing what pollutants are present can help you make informed decisions about how to protect yourself.
Make sense?
And of course, don't hesitate to consult with your doctor if you have any concerns about your health.
Yeah, it's easy to feel overwhelmed when something like this happens. But it's important to remember that we're not alone in this.
Mhm.
We're all experiencing this together, trying to make sense of it. And I think there's something pretty powerful about that shared experience.
I couldn't agree more. That sense of community, of shared experience can be incredibly empowering.
Yeah.
You know, we can learn from each other, support each other, and ultimately navigate this uncertain terrain together.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's what's so fascinating to me about this whole situation with the fog.
How so?
It's almost like the fog itself, in a strange way, is bringing people together.
Interesting.
It's forcing us to confront our fears, ask tough questions, and search for answers collectively.
Right?
It's sparking conversations and prompting us to reevaluate our relationship with the environment.
That's a really interesting perspective. It's easy to get caught up in the fear and the uncertainty, but you're right. There's also an opportunity here for growth,
Yeah.
for connection,
Hmm.
and for a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us.
Absolutely.
And maybe, just maybe, this fog is a wake-up call of sorts, prompting us to pay closer attention to what's happening to our planet.
Precisely. And it highlights the fact that even in the face of adversity, there's always an opportunity for positive change, for collective action. And ultimately, that's what gives me hope.
I love that. So while this fog might be shrouded in mystery, it's also a catalyst for conversation, for critical thinking, and for a renewed appreciation of the interconnectedness of our planet and all its inhabitants.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
But as much as I'd love to keep unpacking this, we are running short on time.
Yes, unfortunately. But this is a conversation that deserves to continue.
Absolutely. And that's where you, our listeners, come in. We want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on this mysterious fog? What questions do you have? What insights have you gleaned from your own research and observations? We really value your input and your perspectives. It's through these collective explorations, these shared journeys of discovery, that we can begin to shed light on even the most perplexing of phenomena.
Well said. I think this whole experience really underscores the importance of staying curious, staying informed, and most importantly, staying connected. We're all in this together, trying to make sense of a world that seems to be changing faster than ever before.
It's a lot to take in. But I think you've given our listeners a lot to think about today. This fog, as unsettling as it is,
Hmm.
it might just be a catalyst for something bigger, something better. Maybe it's a chance for us to come together to ask those tough questions and to demand more transparency from those in positions of power.
I like that perspective. It's a reminder that even amidst uncertainty and fear, there's always room for hope, for action, and for positive change.
Absolutely. And on that note, we'd love to hear what our listeners think. Have you experienced this fog firsthand? What are your thoughts on the theories we've discussed today? Head over to our website or our social media pages and share your insights. We're always eager to continue the conversation beyond this deep dive.
And if there are any other mysteries or unexplained phenomena that you'd like us to explore in future deep dives, let us know. We're all about diving deep into the unknown and searching for the truth together.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Truth Serum. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and keep searching for the truth.